Okay, so we'll start off with Liftoff. So let's first of all have a look at how the tutorial system works in Liftoff, which I'm not a big fan of. Now, Liftoff, I just think has this really backwards way of teaching people to play. It's on small videos that you have to go into your Steam overlay to watch. So you would then watch the video and then do what the instructor says. Now, these videos are good, but they're not fun and they're really not intuitive the way you've got to back out into the Steam overlay and go backwards and forwards. And there's not really a gamey element where you would go to checkpoints or do anything. So it's just not for me. Next, here we're going to just go on the workbench, just building quads. Now, I've cut this short, but there was actually a really long pause in the loading menu from the menu to the workbench. I'll show a pop-up just to show how long that would have taken. Now the workbench is actually really good on Liftoff. We have a lot of different options and different real-world types of frames. I was able to make the $99 build, which was one of my first quads. And then when I looked on the community marketplace, somebody had already made that quad. So it's nice to see that you can really build your own quad and have the right battery and have the right antenna, have the right type of GoPro that you want, and it change the props. It's probably the simulator with the best array of different types of motors, antennas, frames. If all of these have been checked for physics in the same ways that other ones have, I'm not sure. And comparing this to DRL, I mean, we'll get to it later, but I think that this definitely wins on building your own quad. And just to show how long it would have taken for this to load is now. That's how long it took to load this workbench. Now, just to compare that when we're going into DRL. And this usability is one of my main gripes with this game. Now, as you can see, we go back to the main menu here and it's a 30-second load screen. I've just cut it short. And then we go into the free flight and then we go into a load screen. That one's quite a short one. And then we're in the level select. But what happens if you want to then go back from the level select into your workbench? You have to go through that same load screen. And it's frustration. Anyway, to get on with this, here we are in the level select, and there's quite a few levels. I think there's 14 levels in all, and each one of those has a couple of races. And you can also download a lot of community races, and there's quite a few, and they're quite good. I especially like a lot of the Bando ones. The size of most of these levels are quite small, with the exception of a couple, Hanover being one of the bigger maps. And the custom maps that you can build can be quite big, but then they don't look as good. Here we have a football stadium, but it's really limited. It really is what you can see here, and they are for smaller courses, and I'm fine with that. But it would be nice to have the ability to fly over the top of the stadium and fly around like you can in DRL. One thing I can say about all these maps are that they all do look quite nice, and it is nice to fly around JB's farm. As you can see, when I fly up here, I get the warning that I'm going out of bounds. It's a bit frustrating. You want to be able to really fly around. Another one of my gripes is that a lot of these maps aren't that well optimized. And I keep on getting jitters, which make it really hard to fly at points. Now, I'm not saying that all of my bad flying's down to this, but you can really see the frame rate chop in areas like that there. I was recording the footage, so I put the graphics down, and you can see just how bad the shadowing is and how bad the tree lodding is on this game. And comparing this to how DRL ran, I didn't have to change any of the settings. I didn't notice any bad shadow artifacting or really obvious popping. So for performance, I'd say that if you don't have a fantastic computer, I wouldn't get this. So how does it work as a simulator? The most important question. Well, it's good, and that's really just the word I'd describe it. You know, it's good. Um, it's not the best out of the ones I tried. I probably tried about 5 simulators, um, and the physics on it they feel okay. Like it, but there's issues with it. It feels sluggish in the corners. I don't think it goes very fast, and most of the people that I talk to agree. Um, and you're never going to get a simulator that really gets it 100% right. Um, and this really will help you with your stick time and get you to know your throttle, your pitch, and your roll. But for me, it's just not the simulator that I use. I feel that I just struggle to get round the tracks in the same way that I do on other simulators, and this isn't just the amount of time that I've put into these simulators. We'll be checking out FPV Air 2 at the end of this, and within minutes of being in that simulator, I could move the quad around exactly how I wanted to and how it feels in real life. And that after 18 hours of being in this simulator, I never got that feeling. Now, a feature in Liftoff is when you crash, you can rewind time. Now, I love the idea of this, but the reality of it is when you rewind time, you're often already on a bad trajectory. So you've already messed up, so you have to go back way further or just frustratingly crash into the same object a few times in a row. Now, most people I spoke to about simulators said that they actually had liftoff rather than any of the others. I think this is usually because the availability and that DRL's physics updates just weren't as good as they are now. So people have really used liftoff rather than DRL. The other thing that people said was that liftoff has a multiplayer community and more community maps, and that was one big thing that they latched onto. Now, out of all of the simulators that I tried, this was really the only one to have any multiplayer rooms or lobbies. I think there was 1 or 2 in all the time that I've been looking at DRL, but that doesn't mean that they're not there. So, what are my final thoughts on Liftoff? I'd say that it's a good sim. I would give it a 7 out of 10. My big issues are the UI is just really frustrating to go in and out of the modular menus that really frustrate me. I'm not a big fan of the tutorial system. It doesn't run as well on my PC as I would hope, and sometimes I feel like I am flying in jelly a little bit, but I do enjoy it. I have got 18 hours played on it, so it must be doing something right. So the next simulator coming up is DRL, Drone Racing League. Now, this has been my favorite, definitely out of the bunch. I'm just going to say it right now. I think the polish that this game has is just far and above any of the other things that I've played. I mean, just from this intro, you can tell that this has a lot more money spent on it than the other competitors. So, just like we did in the first bit, we're going to look at how this game is for new people flying. And this is probably the best one out of all of them. Again, it has gamified little sections where you learn to fly, and it starts you off very simple, locking you to each axis of the controller and shows you what to do. Now I've made 3 of my friends and my girlfriend play this, and the gamers among them found this a little bit slow. They wanted to dive straight in and really get going. And when I let them just go straight into the free for all, the free roam version, they really struggled and then decided to go back to the learning. So next, again, we're just going to look at the workbench, and as you can see, the menus just work. You're going into the menu and it's that fast to check out your quad. So as you can see on the right hand side here, there isn't that many options, but the reason for that is because each one put on has to be validated in an extremely tight manner to work against the real world. DRL does motion capture to test each motor on each frame to see if they all work the way that they do in real life. So I can see why they don't have many options, but it really is a shame that they don't have the range that Liftoff does. So while looking at the courses on this, I realized that DRL has 22 standard maps and the flat ground infinite map grasslands in comparison to Liftoff's 14. And each one of these maps I just think has an extra layer of polish and most oftentimes bigger. They do also have the community maps. These maps as well, when compared to Liftoff, have a verticality that I don't think that Liftoff really has, and I feel like they're more of a drone playground. Looking at this section here, this little courtyard of one of the map's terminal is almost as big as that first map I showed on Liftoff. There are large areas left open in this map, but the bits that aren't just are really fun to fly around. And when recording these clips for the video, I found myself flying around for maybe a couple of hours procrastinating, just having fun. Whereas when I was playing on the other simulators, I just didn't get that. They have really interesting areas that you just cry out for these, gaps and flips and rolls and power loops. I love the maps on this game. Another thing to note is that it has all the multi-GP maps, so the UTT, the Universal Time Trials, that will allow you to get better and practice these trials in simulator before going out in the real world. So I felt the racing on DRL was just far and above everything else. The usability of the ghost line, the big red line that shows you where to go next, the markers were just so good, especially when trying to learn a track for the first time, rather than just going the wrong direction and not knowing where you're going next. The line really showed you where to go. The tracks are just more interesting, and even the harder ones just seemed more accessible and easy to go to, rather than when you fail and having to do the time travel thing where you're going back in time. You can just click a button, reset, and you reset on the tracker a little bit behind where you were, and it just makes it much easier to learn the tracks. Also, the tracks are more fun than the Liftoff ones, in my opinion. You can also choose who you're racing against. You can race against the top 5, a random 50 people from the leaderboard, the people that are closest to you in the leaderboard, or you can race against yourself. And you can also watch the replays of the people on the top to learn how to fly the course a lot better. You can see here I'm getting absolutely smashed by the top 5. Another thing to mention is that you can quickly change your camera tilt, your FOV, your camera mode, your drone, your physics, and a lot of other options straight in the menu while you're playing, and those changes all go into effect instantly. Out of all the ones I played, this was definitely the easiest one to do it all in. So overall, how does it play? How is it as a simulator? Well, I think the physics on this are much, much closer to real life, and I feel playing this game that it's just really, really gets me into the racing spirit. I feel that this is one that I will play and play and play and not get fatigued by. Um, is it exactly like real life? Not quite. It's definitely closer than Liftoff, in my opinion, and I find that I could come around much tighter courses. And where I was struggling before, if you just compare my footage from Liftoff to this one, you'll see that I'm just I'm a better pilot in this, um, just all the way through. And I feel I, s- I struggle on Liftoff where I don't struggle on this. So, final thoughts. I would give this a 9 out of 10. The UI is great, the handling's great for me. Um, I love the fact that there's a lot of real world races, the multi GP stuff, the drone racing league real races that are out there. Um, is it perfect? No, not nothing's going to be perfect. But from all the ones that I've played, this is the best one. So I also thought that I would review FPV Air 2 because it's $3.99 and I just thought it was a really, really good simulator for what it is. Um, like it looks basic and it has lots of glitches. It's obviously made by a smaller dev, um, but the handling on this was just really, really good. Like straight out of the box, no messing around. I jumped in this and I just really enjoyed it. I got gifted it. Somebody gave me a key and they said it was really good, and so I checked it out. And sure enough, like I jumped in and I thought it was great. Now, I don't know if it'd be as good coming as a learner because it doesn't have that same structure to it, but it's still like a really solid game, especially for $3.99. Now, you can see here, this is the map here from above. It's the one map that you get with the standard game. There are more maps with the DLC, but you get a variety of different tracks for that one map, and the tracks are great. I really like all of them. They are really set up for learning how to race. There are ladders, like zigzags, and learning how to do power loops and all sorts. I just you can see here on the right hand side, that's all of the maps. Um, so just with the base $3.99 game, there's that, and you can buy more DLC, and I've heard those maps are quite good. It does have a drone builder, but it's limited and it feels very unfinished, and a little bit glitchy. So I don't want to smash it too hard, but I think that it's definitely the worst out of the bunch. It works and it doesn't really change any of the physics. I'm pretty sure. One thing that I think this does beat Liftoff on and DRL is that the gates that you fly through um, can't be activated by one side. So if you're going through the gate the wrong way, it doesn't allow it, whereas on the other ones it does. And for me, I prefer that. You also have the option to change a few of the graphic settings. I have it so the vignettes turned off and the motion blurs turned off, just because it's not to my taste. You can also change the camera angle in this, and it's all quite easy and user friendly, if not a little bit basic. Overall, I'd say that this game is a 5 out of 10. I love the way the game plays, but it's not finished. There isn't enough variety, and I think FPVR 3 will probably be where it's at. So, final thoughts on everything. DRL is a clear winner for me, and If you're not using it, I don't understand why. The physics just seem way more locked in. I think a lot of people are talking about the physics of the alpha build that are very, very different now. The maps are better, and I think the graphics are better, and the usability is the best for sure. The leaderboards, the ghosts, the replays, for me, it's all DRL. So thanks for watching. If you made it this far, you've done really well. Thank you very much, and consider subscribing and giving me a like. Cheers, guys.